Today's episode is brought to you by Card Kingdom, and for a limited time, all pre-orders of $25 or more with a Modern Horizons booster pack or box will get a sheet of stickers featuring not just the Card Kingdom logo, but some of your favorite Modern decks for free. Hello everyone, and welcome to a super special video. As you know, when a new set comes out, we like to do top 10 videos talking about the most impactful cards in various formats, and with Modern Horizons, we got a special one. We are actually going to talk Pauper today. Normally we do like Commander and Standard and Modern, but with a set like Modern Horizons, there's a lot of new Pauper playables, more so than a typical Standard set, which means Pauper is getting its own video this time around. And to do this, we have a super special guest, Alpha Moyer, probably better known as Armchair General on Twitch. He is the Pauper writer over on MTGGoldfish, along with doing the Twitch stream, streaming a lot of Pauper and other stuff as well. So we are going to be talking about the top 10 Pauper cards. How you doing today, Armchair General, probably better known as Moyer?
All right, that made my day, that intro. Thank you. I'm doing great, thank you.
So before we get into it, I gotta tell people a little more about you. I mentioned you stream Twitch. You do primarily Pauper on your Twitch stream, or do you do other formats too? What's your Twitch stream like?
I've been doing a lot of Pauper because I kind of know the decks inside and outside at this point, so I've gotten to that point where I can generally go at least 3-2, but normally 4-1 on all my leagues. So it's how I've been grinding for Legacy.
That's a good point to be at. If you can consistently go 3-2 or 4-1, you're slowly pulling ahead in treasure chest value. So
yeah, and that's something else worth mentioning. If anybody's ever trying to get into Legacy, don't just get into Legacy. Earn your tickets in something else, and then rent your decks so you find something you like. Because I almost made the mistake of doing it other ways.
Yeah, Legacy, I mean, that's not our main topic for today, but it's definitely a tough format to learn if you've never played it before, and just picking it up. Not a format you can expect to just win with consistently. The format is so powerful that you really need to know the matchups inside and out, and such small decisions
make a huge impact.
Yeah, it can win or lose you games, and they're decisions that if you're playing Standard, it's a decision that maybe you make it wrong, but you still go on and win, because it's not, there's much tighter margins in Legacy than there is in a lot of other formats, I think.
Oh no, that is completely accurate. That's actually what I was saying, or segueing it into, because I am going from Pauper to Legacy right now. Like, I'm trying to make that transition a little bit, and Pauper is by nature a grindy format. So if you make a mistake, you'll have the time to make up for it generally. Legacy, you make a mistake, you're dead in a turn, if you're lucky.
That is very true. So anyway, our plan for today is pretty simple. Top 10 Modern Horizons cards for Pauper. But before we get to the countdown, I wanted to ask you, Moyer, what do you think about this set in general? Like, how good is this set for the Pauper format?
It's definitely above average in the terms of playable cards. Because in general, commons are just there to fill out drafts. But in this set, it feels like there were actually some pretty powerful cards. And there were a lot of great reprints so far as like cost is concerned. Like Spore Frog, for example. That card was really expensive online. I think it was up to like $3 or $4, which for a Pauper card, that's kind of crazy. You know, save the chest-only cards.
Yeah, when Pauper decks are like 50 tickets in general, spending $4 a piece on a playset of a card, that's really expensive for the format. So it's good to see some reprints that'll bring down the prices online. And today, though, we're mostly focusing on new cards. We have a list of 10 new cards for the format, and we're going to jump right into it. Starting with number 10. Number 10 on our list, we have a simple 1-mana black instant. Defile, giving a creature -1/-1 for each swamp you control. So, Moyer, does this harken back to mono black? Are we going to see a resurgence of the mono black control archetype that used to be one of the best decks in the format?
Honestly, yes, but not for this reason, I feel, actually. Yes, this is a good reason for it, but the thing to me is, and why I actually put it so low on the list, black has a lot of great removal already. Like, this is a great tool, and it can fill a couple of niche needs, but with all the edict effects they already have and other kill spells, I'm not sure if they need this. The main reason I could honestly see black coming back, though, is with the prevalence of Tron, they have the most, like, 3-drop land destruction.
That's actually a really good point. I hadn't considered that. So, with Defile, let's say you are playing mono black control. Is this a main deck card? If so, how many copies are you playing in the main deck? Over like your disfigures, over whatever, Tragic Slips, Doom Blades, all the other options you have for killing stuff, how many of these do you think actually show up? Or is this more of like a sideboard card?
So I think what's going to happen is it's going to replace Disfigure in the set, or in the decks that run it.
Okay.
That's going to be the main impact. So we'll hit some more things, but I don't think it's going to, like I said, it's not going to make that big of an impact, because Disfigure kills, I want to say, 75% of the creatures you see. That might be a little bit over the top, but it's not much off.
I think the one upside I can see for this card is if you are playing mono black in specific, where you're playing a swamp each turn, it's a card that takes down Delver on turn 1, or another threat similar to Delver on turn 1, and then by like turn 5, you're taking down a Girma Angler, so the flexibility there is kind of nice how it scales through the game, but you gotta be specifically in mono black with mostly a basic swamp in Pauper, mana base, to actually power it up that way. So any chance this shows up outside of mono black, or is this purely like you're playing all swamps, all in on the mono black plan?
In Pauper specifically, there might be one other deck, but I doubt it, because there is this weird deck that I occasionally see. Oh, I can't remember what it's called, but it uses Elsewhere Vial, I think it's called, and it turns all your lands into swamps temporarily, but the deck only runs 20 forests normally.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever seen that deck.
Because there's this... I've only lost to it once, because I've only ever seen it once, and I didn't know what it did. But there's this, I think it's a 5-drop sorcery or instant that just drains an opponent for X. X is equal to the number of swamps you control.
Oh, so you're trying to, like, ramp with forests and then turn your forests into swamps and
That's
drain
exactly
someone
what
out?
the deck does.
Oh, Pauper is just a wonderful format. Only in Pauper.
Yeah, it's just a mono-green ramp deck, usually like Sakura Tribe Elders, the Sakura Tribe Scouts, all that, and just dump all your force on the board and then 20 of them at once.
Well, let's move on. Number 9 on our list, we have Smoke Shroud, a new aura for blue. So this one refers to ninjas. Is that part of why this card is playable, Moyer?
That is exactly why it's playable. So give me one moment here. Let me just pull it up to double check. Of the top 7 decks, 3 of them run Ninja of the Deep Hours. Ninja of the Deep Hours, for those of you that don't know, when you hit the opponent with it, you get to draw a card, and it has ninjutsu. The way this card works, it enters the battlefield, and it gets equipped to the ninja if it's in your graveyard, for free. So not only are you dealing an extra point of damage, immediately, you're now giving a ninja that normally gets blocked by any X2 indefinitely, or 2X, or whatever you want to phrase it, on the ground, now has flying that they have to cope with. And if you're hitting with it, that's card draw every turn.
That actually seems really powerful. I mean, the power of Ninja Deep Powers is you get in that first hit often with ninjutsu, because that's how ninjutsu works. But then the way that people can beat a ninja deep hours is it's only a 2/2, so you play something that can block it. This takes that plan off the battlefield, and if your first ninja dies, it comes back from the battlefield for free the next time you draw a ninja. And since you're drawing so many extra cards with ninja and you're playing a blue deck, so you got a million cantrips to find exactly what you need, you're going to fight another ninja, and then you're going to have this flying ninja that actually seems very powerful. So do you think if you are a Ninja of the Deep Hours deck, is this something that you're definitely playing in that deck, considering for the deck? Where does that fit?
I personally would try experimenting with 1 or 2 of it, only because of the potential value, and I would also bring in, what is it called? Akiba Gang Shinobi, I think, into the side then.
Is that the discard
it
ninja?
Is.
Okay.
It is. And at that point, might even put in a 1 above the bounce one to deal with their bigger threats on the ground, because it's a recurring, all right, well, you're going to have summoning sickness, bounce, 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 just getting in damage every turn and making it so that their threat can't actually stick on the board.
It's also pretty cute that because it returns to the battlefield, you can pick up your first ninja that is wearing Smoke Shroud. It'll go to the graveyard to ninjutsu in, like, the bounce ninja, and, like, maybe bouncing a Girma Angler in specific is really powerful, because it's hard to keep delving away enough cards to continually cast a Girma Angler. You usually empty your graveyard to get it down, so you can, sure, pick up your Ninja Deep Hours, whatever. Like, normally that's not great, but if you're putting a flying bounce ninja into play and bouncing a Girma Angler, that's awesome, and the Smoke Shroud is coming back for free value from your graveyard. That actually seems very powerful.
That's why I'm seeing maybe 1 or 2 of it in the Delver decks. Maybe.
And Yeah, and I mean, Delver decks kind of have maybe a little bit more room now with the recent bannings we have, where maybe there's more room to try out some of these, like, more unique builds of Delver that before, with Daze and Gush and, like, all the staple cards that you just had to play because they were so good, maybe there wouldn't be room for this, but in our post-banning Pauper world, I think you have a lot more flexibility to try out cards like this.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like, Augur Bolas has largely taken their place alongside of Accumulated Knowledge, but I can definitely see the more ground-based, or not ground-based, creature-based of Ninja Plan taking over with this. Or not taking over, at least competing.
Well, let's move on to number 8 on our list. We have another enchantment, but this one's a little bit different. Rather than an enchantment that makes a creature better, it's an enchantment that actually turns into a creature in Answered Prayers. So, Moyer, what are we doing with Answered Prayers in the Pauper format?
Elf Answered Prayers? Didn't know that was on the list. Honestly, if you look at the metagame, I believe Burn is by far in the lead still, even though, you know, it got a little hit with the Gypro, but the thing is, a lot of main deck white weenie decks, they run some life gain, but not that much. I feel Answered Prayers gives them that little bit of reach, for lack of a better term, to get out of burn range.
And, I mean, you can justify it more, I think, than other life gain spells, because it's also a 3/3 flyer that can beat down, and that kind of works well if you're playing Thraben Inspectors and picking them up with Core Skyfishers or whatever. You're constantly having creatures enter the battlefield, so you can constantly turn this into a 3/3 beater, which also seems like a nice upside. The life gain is almost incidental. Like, you're playing a 3/3 flyer that's going to be able to attack most turns, and you're gaining life to not die to burn.
Exactly. Like, the reason I went to life gain first was because a lot of the weenie decks I see running like the Sisters package. But the thing is with this, it's an enchantment more often than not. So guess what burn can't answer?
That is a really good point. If you play a Soul Sister, they're just going to kill it because they have a million spells that can kill creatures, especially small creatures. This, a bird deck, I guess if you turn it on, they can kill it, but still...
Then it eats a whole bolt, though, as opposed to that trickery.
And you at least gained 1 life after the first creature entering the battlefield, so that's like at least a 4-life swing in your favor. And against a burn deck, 4 life is sometimes the difference between winning and losing, I think.
Yeah, that's 1 entire Fire Blast you negate.
Well, let's move on to number 7 on our list. And this time we got a land, which is kind of interesting. Cave of Temptation. So, can be mana fixing. Kind of expensive, paupery mana fixing, like I can't
Unknown
remember
Shores.
the name. Yes, Unknown Shores. Unknown Shores mana fixing, but you can also put some counters on a creature you control by paying some mana and sacrificing it. So where does this one fit in the Pauper format, Moyer?
I could see it being ran in mostly 2 decks, Boggles and Slivers. Because,
Boggles.
Well, don't be a hater. Like, it's a deck. At least this one doesn't have Vigilance and First Strike and all that at once off of 1 card.
That's true. So what is this? So in Slivers, I assume this is mostly for the mana fixing with some added benefit, but then in Boggles, it would probably be mostly for the counters with an added benefit of sometimes fixing your mana?
Actually, other way around in Boggles, because if you've looked at current Boggles lists, the only mana fixing it has is its actual enchantments and 4 of Crumbling Visage. Or Vestige, or however you pronounce that card.
The one that makes a man of any color when it enters the battlefield, but then taps for colorless? Yeah.
So I feel this could possibly replace the Crumbling Vestiges, because yes, it costs that extra mana, but the fact that you can later sacrifice it to give +2/+2 at a potentially critical moment feels like it could definitely be worth it.
Yeah, one thing that I've learned about Pauper is it is a really grindy format, grindy, card advantage based, so even something... as simple as 2 extra counters on a creature out of your land slot, any amount of like extra value you can squeeze into your deck for free is way more relevant in Pauper than in a lot of other formats, just because of how grindy the format tends to be.
Yeah, to emphasize how grindy it can be, I at least time out, or somebody gets timed out at least once per league generally, because of Tron.
All right, let's move on to number 6 on our list. Back in the world of white cards, and this is kind of a fun one. A token producer with buyback. Recruit the Worthy, so you can get a 1/1 soldier for 1 mana, or you get a 1/1 soldier for 4 mana, but get to have Recruit of the Worthy still in your hand. Kind of like a fixed Sprout Swarm to some extent, you might say. What do you want to do with this one in Pauper?
Honestly, I just like it because White Weenie's already a deck. And it feels like a slightly worse version of Sprout Swarm, but in a color that makes it relevant. Does that make sense?
It sort of reminds me a little bit of, is it Sen's Enlistment, which is
yes.
Kind of like your flood out protection in a white token-based strategy, because you can keep discarding extra lands to cast it from your graveyard. Mm-hmm. It seems like this kind of fills a similar role, where you're able to have, if you draw too many lands, you have this card that at least you're doing something every turn and adding to the board every turn, and unlike Sen's Enlistment, this is an instant, which adds some extra surprise value. Maybe you can sneak in and eat an attacker or something, or make a token on your opponent's end step and attack for lethal. Mm-hmm. So I think the instant speed aspect, a nice little benefit. Do you think it's better than Sen's Enlistment in kind of that role that it would fill?
Yes, but not for that reason, actually. The reason I really like it is because it doesn't care about graveyard hate.
That's a very good point. It never goes to the graveyard. When Sen's Enlistment, it's a Relic of Progenitus or whatever, just shuts it down. This one just keeps going back to your hand. So, very interesting. What deck would you play this in, Moyer?
Any of the white weenie decks. Like, I could definitely see it being played in Tron Weenie, or not Tron Weenie. That's terrifying thought. Red-white weenies. Or mono-white weenies. I could possibly even see it being as a one-of-in mono-white heroic, just as a emergency blocker maker.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of gives you a creature that is always going to be around if you get to the point where you can buy back it. So the problem, like, sometimes with heroic decks, similar to, like, Boggles decks, if you can deal with their threats, they are sort of, like, threat light. So having access to a repeatable creature seems like it could be a big deal.
Thank you. You actually reminded me of the other place I could have seen it being played. I thought of putting it in the side of Boggles, because the biggest thing you fear as a Boggle player is, do they have an edict? Do they have an edict? Do they have an edict? With this, it goes on the stack, you cast Recruit the Worthy, you now have something that you can sack and not care about.
That's a great point. We see Cartouche of Solidarity.
Yep.
Basically in the deck to be Edict protection, making a token that you can sacrifice. This does something similar, but it does it at instant speed. So not only are you going to have a creature to fizzle the Edict, you're going to be able to possibly get the Edict out of your opponent's hand, because they're going to cast it thinking, haha, I got your Boggle. And then you're like, nope, I Recruit the Worthy. Here, you have my soldier instead.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, in that regard, you a lot of times don't have to worry about buying it back, because this will happen sometimes like turn 3, where because of Boggles, and we know how much Seth loves Boggles, you'll just have lethal ready on your next turn. But then they're like, all right, well, I don't want to die. Edict. And you're like, I activate my trap card? Oh, wait, wrong game.
Well, let's move on from the world of trap cards to the world of slivers. Number 5 on our list, we have Enduring Sliver, an Outlast Sliver, allowing all your Sliver creatures to tap to put counters on it. So, Slivers is a deck that I occasionally see running around in the Pauper format, especially, is it like green-white, the most popular build, where it's kind of just like Sliver beatdown with all the lords and you try to attack? How big of a deal is this for the Sliver archetype in Pauper, Moyer?
I'm not actually sure, but actually, I just remembered. You actually did a deck tech on my list once of the green-white variety.
Oh, I remember that. That was a while ago. That was a list.
Yeah, so in that list, I think Enduring Sliver might fit only because sometimes you'll never hit another lord. And I do mean never hit the lord. Enduring Sliver lets you get higher when you need to, even if you can't build out like you actually need to normally with the Sliver deck. So if your opponent's hitting you with a bunch of Edict effects, you can sacrifice the less important Slivers, keeping the ones that you've already built up, and the Enduring Slivers you can continue to keep building up. So you can fight with that Girma Angler despite them hitting you with 3 Chainer's Edicts.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. And it does give you kind of a nice mana sink for when the game goes long. Like, you flood out, you got a bunch of lands, at least you can always grow your Slivers if you kind of have those bad draws where you just draw way too many lands. So it seems like a nice protection against flooding out as well.
Now, that does bring up a good point, though. Worth mentioning for those of us not familiar with Outlast, so most of us, it is sorcery speed only. So you have to be careful thinking about, can I afford to tap out to do this?
That is a very good point. So you can't, like, block with your Enduring Sliver and then tap it to put a counter on it and kill the blocker. No shenanigans like that. But still, I mean, even with that downside, it is sort of like a weird backup Sliver Lord to some extent.
Exactly. Which kind of makes the 2-drop slot a little bit more balanced, I feel, for the deck, because right now it's 2 different Lords for green and 1 for white. This sort of gives white like a half of a Lord.
Pretty soon we're going to be to the point where you can just play a deck that is all Sliver Lords. Just it's going to be like 42 drop Sliver Lords, play them all like Rat Colony Sliver style.
Is that the world we want to live in, though, Seth? Is that the world we want to live in?
I don't know if it's the world we want to live in, but eventually, another 10 years of sets like this, and it will be the world we're living in.
Honestly, I don't think so, because, like, they printed, a total of 6 Slivers in this set? And most of them were disappointing.
At least we got the original art back, and we don't have the weird humanoid Slivers anymore.
See, that's an entire lore discussion, but it made sense to me. Because the whole idea behind Slivers are, we'll adapt to whatever works best. And if humanoid appearance is what's working for them best, all right, weird flex, but go for it.
All right, I'll buy that. That is a good argument. I hadn't really thought about that before. So maybe the humanoid Slivers were actually perfect. All right, let's move on. Number 4 on our list. We have another white card. This is a sweet one. Martyr's Soul, allowing you to potentially cast it with Convoke and end up with sort of a free 5/4? How big is a free 5/4 in Pauper, Moyer?
Well, Girma Angler is a staple in black decks, and that's a 1-mana 5/5.
Yeah, I mean, so this, I assume, is some sort of, like, White Weenie / Battle Screech token style deck? Is that the direction you would head with Martyr of Soul?
Yeah, any of the Go Wide X white decks I would see this in, just if nothing else as an answer to Girma Angler, because it's really big in the metagame, and a lot of times you'll have to throw like 5 cards in front of it to kill it normally, as opposed to, well, here's my big Girma Angler, now you have to deal with it.
Yeah, having one card that can trade with your opponent's Girma Angler actually seems like a pretty big deal, and I assume that it's pretty easy to have 3 creatures to convoke this out in the decks that would play it.
Well, yeah, like any deck that could cast a Convoke Battle Screech can obviously convoke this. Or not Convoke Battle Screech, Flashback Battle Screech, because that's tap 3 white creatures.
I guess that also allows for some potentially really explosive draws with something like Battle Screech, where you're just like really flooding the board with creatures super quickly and just putting your opponent to the test. The other thing is, it's going to be a 5/4, which makes it a creature that survives some of the hate your tokens decks get. You're not going to get shriveled or whatever, which takes down all of your X1s that you're playing, or Electric Read. Martyr of Souls gives you something that's kind of like dodging some of the hate cards that people bring in to fight against the X1 go wide strategies.
Yeah, though that being said, if you're dying to that, remember Lumifield is a card.
Good hot tech from our Pauper Top 10 video. I forgot all about that card, actually.
That's why I mentioned it. It's a really obscure card that nobody remembers.
What is one I often see? Veteran Armorer? Is that the creaturey +0/+1 that people play sometimes? But that Lumenfield is a enchantment, right? So it's probably a little less likely to get lightning bolted, and then you get Electric Read, and then you're very sad.
It's also a morph.
Ooh. You can turn it into a creature? You can play it as a creature, or flip it around into enchantment?
Which can sometimes blow some removal out of them, because I've played it as a creature to see if they'll try and bolt it or something, and then just flip it in response and be like, well, there goes your bolt.
This probably isn't the video for it, but I love the fact that people are so afraid of morphs. Like, every Magic player, whether, I don't even know if people realize it, like, subconsciously, you see a morph, and you have to kill it. Like,
It's fear the unknown.
Yeah, and you just know that it's probably not something you should be afraid of, and it's probably a horrible card that you don't actually care about, but you just can't get past the temptation of killing it because you don't know what it is.
Exactly, because it could be anything. It could even be a boat.
On that note, let's move on to number 3 on our and Weather the Storm. So, Weather the Storm marks the return of Storm, a mechanic that I didn't know we'd ever see again, except this version of Storm, a little bit different. Instead of killing your opponent, it gains you a bunch of life. 3 life for each spell that was cast before this turn at instant speed. What are we doing with Weather the Storm at Pauper, Moyer?
Honestly, I only put it up there because I know people's love of Storm as a mechanic. Somebody's going to attempt to break this, and they'll be determined, and they'll find a way. I personally don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know when they'll do it, but nature finds a way.
So let me ask you, discounting the trying to storm off and gain a bunch of life plan, that I think you're right. People will try to figure it out because people do love Storm, and all the real Storm cards have been banned from Pauper because they were just so good.
That's not true. There is one green one that actually sees occasional play.
Oh, the land one, Sprouting Vines?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, that shows you how much people love Storm, because you have to jump through some hoops to turn a rampant growth into your Storm finisher.
It's not a rampant growth. It adds it to your hand, which is actually relevant.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because you use that with Inner Fire.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you
get a bunch of
fireball
mana.
them.
Okay. But still, it's definitely Storm with extra steps compared to just scrape shot your face.
Steps.
But Weather the Storm, what do you think about this in fair decks? We see, like, Life Goes On occasionally, like, random life gain cards to fight against Burn in specific, other aggro decks. If you think of Weather the Storm, your opponent goes like, I don't know, Lightning Bolt, Fire Blast, you cast this, you gain back more life than they were actually going to deal you with Lightning Bolt, Fire Blast, and, like, it seems like maybe you can play this fairly in your sideboard slot as your, like, life gain spell.
And that is the other reason I felt safe putting it in number 2. Because of that right there. I did the math, and on turn 3, the average Burn player will throw anywhere from, depending on if they have creatures out to back it up, somewhere between 9 to 13 damage at you, depending on if they have Fire Blast in hand. And then that's normally enough to kill you. It doesn't, it outdoes it by 2. You gain 15.
Oh man, can you imagine if you get the Bird player after they sack their lands to Fire Blast? That is the ultimate beatdown.
It's going to be the green equivalent to Gotcha with Hollow. Which is, I'll be honest, my favorite way to beat Burn. Just them being like, well, I've sacked both my lands and you just gained 4 life.
Oh yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to trying to do that against Burn decks. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Moyer, because you know the meta better than I do. I think Burn is like maybe the number 1 deck in the post-banning metagame?
It was in the pre-banning metagame as well. Remember, I even put that pedantic crying about it a while back that people yelled at me for crying about it.
So not only is this fighting a deck, but it's fighting the best deck, or at least one of the best decks in the format.
All right, I'm going to argue here. I don't think it's the best. I think it's the most widely played. And I think that's why it's the most winning, because just so many people play it.
Do you think, let me ask you this, do you think that the reason it's so heavily played is because it's so fast and people grind Pauper to try to basically make ticks to lose on Legacy? Wink, wink.
I feel personally attacked. That's part of it, but also the ease of use. Because let's be honest, what Magic the Gathering player can't count to 20?
Yeah, that's a good point. It is, I mean, Bird is a deck, and I gotta say this in defense of Bird. Bird is a deck where pretty much anyone can play it pretty well, but I do think to play Burn really optimally, if you see like a Patrick Sullivan or just like a Burn Master, they are winning games that the average person isn't going to win with a Bird deck. So there is like skill if you get to that level and you're really good at playing Burn, but you are right. If you just want to pick up Pauper for the first time and try to like 4-1 a league, Burn is a pretty easy direction to go with that.
Yeah, it has a very, I believe, low skill floor and a very meh ceiling.
That sounds about right. Well,
Yeah,
let's move on.
yeah.
Number 2 on our list, we have more green cards, and this is one that I kind of immediately picked up on for Pauper, even though I don't play nearly as much as you. Winding Way, this card seems to me to be a Lead the Stampede replacement for decks like Elves and Slivers. Am I on the right track with my limited Pauper knowledge, Boyer?
You are spot on, my good man. So Slivers, for those of you that don't know, only runs anywhere from about 18 to 20 lands, normally closer to 18, and you will run out of Slivers. It's just a fact of life. All of your creatures are 2 drops or less, and Lead the Stampede was really clunky at 3. Yes, you're getting potentially 1 less card with this, but with the fact that you can safely run 18 lands and not have to worry about hitting that 3rd land drop makes it much, much more consistent, in my opinion. Because it's much more realistic to expect 2 lands in an 18 hand, or 2 lands in an 18 land deck than 3 in like a 20 land deck, I believe, mathematically speaking. I'd have to get Seth with the hypogeometric calculator, but
that sounds right to me, but yeah, I think that is correct.
But also, just the fact that, I have a hand that's running Slivers and I want to be able to play them all at once. You could, in emergency, name land just so you can maybe go to 4 lands so that you can be playing 2 Lords a turn. Like, that's obviously a fringe need, but the big thing is being able to refill your hand when you've played all your Slivers.
Do you think this does the same thing in the elf deck? Or is there any deck that plays Lead the Stampede that is going to stick with Lead the Stampede? Because you do get to see one extra card. Like, does elves make so much mana? They're like, 3 mana, what do I care? I make 1,000,000 mana anyway. I might as well see one more card.
So, the thing with elves is, it might cause Distant Melody to drop so that they can drop the island and the rangers, the Sylvan Rangers. So that way you could be truly mono green.
It seems like there's some upside to being monocolored if you have the option, considering how many tap lands there are in Pauper.
Well, it only runs one island generally because you can search that island out with either one of your 2 Sylvan Rangers, or you can make it with your Birch Lore Rangers. So you're effectively running 7 hits for blue mana for 4 1-cost blue cards.
Okay, so do you think this would replace Distant Melody then?
It will depend on build to build. Like in a grindier version, yes. But if you want to go for the explosive version, I think you still want to keep the Distant Melody because then you can hit another Distant Melody or another Lead the Stampede and chain it together and keep going, which you can't really do with Winding Way.
The other question I got to ask you about this card, are there any decks that are going to play this primarily for the mulch effect, the land option? Or is this mostly like decks that are playing 30 creatures or more, using this to refill on their creatures? Are there any land mulch type decks in Pauper?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen any. What about like Reanimator? Could the Reanimator, like, it does dump cards in your graveyard. I guess it's probably just worse than other options if you're trying to stock your graveyard.
I could definitely see it being ran in, what is it called? Not green-black aristocrats, but green-black...
Oh, like the
Tortured Existence? That's it, Tortured Existence. Because the Reanimator decks don't run green generally, but I could definitely see it being ran in Tortured Existence, because that deck kind of wants it a critical mass of land, so that way you can keep Tortured existing.
And you're stocking your graveyard with creatures, which works with Tortured Existence, because you want creatures in your graveyard.
Yeah, but the downside is, if you hit a Tortured Existence, it go bye-bye.
That is a good point. Well, interesting. It seems like a card that definitely has potential in creature decks, and maybe some other fringe decks can pick up on it too. It is pretty efficient for what it does.
Yeah, for what it does, it is highly efficient. That is the main reason, and it's card advantage in a grindy format, so...
Well, let's move on. Number 1 on our list, and I gotta ask you about this one. This is kind of a dark horse number 1 candidate. Arkhams Astrolabe. So when I saw this card, it's basically a 1 snow mana Prophetic Prism. I know snow mana sees play in Pauper. I know Prophetic Prism, especially in like Tron decks, sees play in Pauper. What are we doing with a 1 mana Prophetic Prism that needs snow mana, Moyer?
So, many of you might have heard and or lost or play Kodath and Boros. For those of you that don't know, the main engine of the deck is it plays Alchemist Vials and Prophetic Prisms and intends to bounce them using Core Skyfishes and Glinhawks to replay them to draw cards and rinse, wash, repeat, and value. Just value for days. This gives you a 1 mana option to be able to gain that card draw. So on turn 1, you could play it, turn 2, Glinthawk, replay it, because why not? That you just net gained 1 card, have a 2/2, and a mana fixer on turn 2.
And it also curves better into your Skyfishers, I would assume. You play this on turn 1, Skyfisher on turn 2 to pick it up. You don't have to pick up a land or whatever. It's kind of like a extra Thraben Inspector almost with that curve that you're trying to set up.
Yeah. The other thing is, the reason I put this at 1 isn't because it's the most likely to be played, even though I'm almost positive it will be. The main reason I did is because I think it's going to have the most impact for the deck. Because I can see it very easily causing the deck to possibly drop the artifact lands and the... Oh, what are they called? Galvanic Blast? Is that the card I'm thinking of?
Yeah, the like shock that gets better if you have 3 artifacts.
Yeah, Galvanic Blast.
Yep.
Dropping that for Skred because, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to Super Bolt your Girma Angler or your Ulamog's Crusher. Which is nice because it actually counts the Astrolabes towards that count, too.
That is a really good point I hadn't really thought of. So I gotta ask you, since we're talking about snow cards, what's your take on Snowlands in the Pauper format? Considering we're getting a reprint, which means they should be more accessible. Do you think it's just correct? If you're building a Pauper deck, should you just play, assuming that they're cheap enough that budget isn't the concern, should you just play Snowlands in your Pauper deck?
Normally, yes. The thing is, it will matter based on which colors you are. So, if you're doing Kodath things, I'd say run them, because then people will be like, oh, he has Skred. Same thing if you're running one of the Delver decks, other than the black-blue one. If you're running like Mono Blue or the Blue-Red, run Snowlands, because once again, they'll be like, oh, he has Skred. Even if you're not, it will put them on edge.
So you get a little bluff value, basically.
Yes, which, I don't know about you, but that could really mess with a guy.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that can, like, impact when your opponent chooses to play creatures, what creatures they choose to play. And if you can get that, even if it's like 1% value, if you're getting that essentially just for free by the basic lands you put in your deck, why would you pass that up? Like, any small amount of value that is literally no deck building cost at all, maybe it was you 1 out of every 100 games, that would still be worth it, considering that it literally doesn't do anything negative, right? There's no downside to running a snow land in Pauper.
There's a little one. I believe
it's
called...
land destruction spell?
Yeah, there's the green land destruction spell, so you take damage from it, technically.
Okay.
But nobody runs that.
Thermocrossed, maybe.
Yeah, and I think... Wait, is Icequake care about snow lands?
Icequake might be similar, actually.
I'm double-checking that, because it's going to bug me.
Or actually, no, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe Icequake is destroy non-snow land. Maybe this is, like...
Destroy land. If it was a snow-covered land, it deals 1 damage to the land's controller.
Oh, okay. So kind of the same deal.
Yeah, but it's 1 damage.
It seems like the number of times you'll run into snow land hate that deals you 2 damage probably going to be outweighed by the upside most of the time, I would assume.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm saying I'll definitely see it played. Like that, and let's be honest, the new lands are gorgeous. I could see them being played just because of people liking gorgeous things.
I'm definitely hopeful that they will be really cheap. That's been one of my pet peeves about snow-covered lands, is especially the good ones, the red ones and the blue ones. They are prohibitively expensive. Like, they're really a couple dollars a copy a lot of times. The price fluctuates, but
bad on Moto?
I believe that Snow-Covered Mountain has been up over 2 ticks at various times.
Let's see. Yeah, Snow-Covered Mountains are 70 cents a piece, and oh lord, Snow-Covered Islands are $2.40 a pop.
Yeah, so if you're building 20 Snow-Covered Island mana base, that's $50. That's literally an entire Pauper deck that you are spending just to get your basic lands. I'm really hopeful that people are going to draft a lot of Modern Horizons on Moto, and that we're going to be able to get really cheap Snowland. I guess this isn't a finance video, but my advice would be, when the set is being drafted, Snowlands are probably going to be really cheap. If you are a Pauper player, pick up your snow-covered mana base for like 10 cents a pop on each land. Like, spend the $2 to get your snow-covered mana base when the set is in print, because they are very important to the Pauper format.
Yeah, like, even if you don't intend to use them, sit on them, because honestly, I could see them going back up once they've been out of rotation a while, like they did in Ice Age. Or not Ice Age, Cold Snap, was it?
Yeah, Cold Snap, and especially with how good the full art ones look. I think they're maybe some people are going to want the original ones, like the Masters Edition ones, just because they always play old cards. But I think that these are probably the best looking, and a lot of people are going to want the full art versions.
Yeah, you're one of those people, aren't you?
Actually, I'm mostly more of a original printing guy for the most part.
Are you a white border dude?
I do like white borders, but mostly
Seth.
old borders. I mostly try to play old borders as much as possible.
All right. I do have one honorable mention that I'm sad I just don't see being played, but I really like the card. The 1/1 Flying Vigilance Angel. I love the card. I wish it was just like a 1/2 though, because as it is, why bother having Vigilance if you're just going to die to anything?
Yeah, that's. I guess it's a way you could like put your ninjas into play. You can do some ninjutsu action, maybe, or something.
Blue-white ninjas? What?
I mean, Flying Men isn't really playable anymore, is it? Like, is that a card? I think it's called Flying Men. It's just a blue 1/1 flyer for 1.
Oh no, they run Fairy Miscreant in that slot.
Yeah, and that draws you a card if you have multiples. That's probably better than Vigilance, I would assume. At least it's protection from, like, getting Electrickery a little bit. You get a card back out of it if you can draw 2 of them.
Well, not to mention the fact that it then synergizes really hard with Fairy or Spell Stutter.
That's also true. You turn on Fairy synergies.
Fairy Miscreant is just 99.9% of the time a better choice than Vigilance.
Yeah. Oh, the Angel's a sweet card, but...
Yeah, like, that's why I wanted to mention it. Like, I love it, but... I'm sorry, you're not going to see play, my man.
You never know. Maybe I'm trusting in you, Armchair General, to build a sweet Sigorvin Angel deck, so I want to see that on your stream in the near future.
I already made Storm Crows. That's the best you're getting, and I regretted every second of it.
Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of our top 10 Modern Horizon cards from for Pauper. So, Armchair General, thanks for hanging out. Tell people one more time, if they want to check you out playing some Pauper, obviously they can read your articles and stuff on the MTGGoldfish site. Where else can they find you playing Pauper and doing your content?
So I have a Twitch, which is twitch.tv/armchairgeneral, obviously. But I've also put up my Twitter finally, and I have a friend that's trying to get me YouTube videos made because I'm awful and don't know how to do any video editing. And I cuss like a sailor when I get salty.
Well, I'm glad we made it through our top 10 video with no sailor cussing, so that's good.
Oh, no, I had a little sticky note on my computer saying, Seth is pure, Seth is innocent, don't cuss in front of him.
Oh, well, you made it. I'm proud of you, Alpha Boyer. So, yeah, check out Boyer over at Armchair General on Twitch, also on Twitter. Thanks so much for doing it. It's always fun. Thank you to all of you for watching. Let us know, if you're a Pauper player, what cards are you most excited about? What do we get right? What do we get wrong? What do we miss? What other cards do you want to build around in the Pauper format? Let us know in the comments. And, yeah, we'll be back with more top 10 videos, doing Modern, doing Commander, of course. So those will be coming up soon. Until then, have a wonderful day. Thanks again to Armchair General, and yeah, I will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.